Yeah. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of The Doors. And today we have an exciting guest. But first, I wanted to remind you to use your voice, to stand up for what you believe in. And do not conform any longer to this pattern that we've made in the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
So, what's up, guys? Of course, we have Zachary Otts. I'm Nicholas Sternloff. Today, we have a fantastic guest that I have been friends with for a very long time. We went to high school together. My friend Carnell Tate. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's going on, Carnell?
Hey, everybody. I'm glad to be on here. Thank you guys for inviting me.
Yeah, definitely, man. So we have this topic that we've been talking for the past about a week and a half now about everything that's been going on, because we talked about having you on the podcast, and then you came up with this topic, this general idea. Tell me a little bit about Damned If I Don't.
So actually, yeah, this came from a conversation with a couple of friends of mine 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And this was like the first time I'd been out post-quarantine in a while. And I just so happened we were talking about all these issues, all these important issues in the world. And, you know, some people who we were talking about have different attitudes towards what's going on right now. And one of the attitudes that some people feel is some people who feel the empathy, feel the pain, and are listening to all these voices. They feel as if they are damned if they do, or they're damned if they don't. So the title really came from that sort of sentiment. But
that's a really great viewpoint, man.
Yeah,
that really is. I think that in today, what's going on, especially with, number one, we have coronavirus. Everyone's like, where to go? Where the hell did coronavirus go?
It's still going on.
It's still going on. And then you also have everything that's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's a damned if I do, damned if I don't. But I mean, there has got to be a happy medium, as well as ways to do things correctly. And that's why I think that this is a perfect topic for it, right?
Yeah, you know, we got sickness, we have disease, we have riots going on, we have people that are, you know, finding themselves, they're finally starting to go through this awakening.
This protest, yeah.
Yeah, man, and it's, the corona has, you know, done that to people where, you know, they got removed from their toxic environment that they were in, or maybe it's not toxic. Maybe you were just doing the same thing every day, so you were never really having to think these thoughts. And now, you know, Will Smith, I think, said it best about racism. He said, you know, it was abolished, but it was never really killed. It's something that continues and continues today. And a lot of times it's based upon the opinion of other people. Yeah. It's kind of sad, man. It's really kind of sad.
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy, man. This is a great topic for what we got going on. I mean, if you want to lead more into what exactly that was too, you wanted to keep going into that. But what's really interesting about all this is we have completely different perspectives on the whole situation, but we ultimately are leading into a grand idea, a scheme of which you could go into.
Yeah, I think it's really going to have to get to a point where we come together as one. I'm not saying that, you know, just because you have an opinion and it's different from me doesn't mean I have to hate you.
Yeah.
It means you're entitled to your own opinion. It means Carnell's entitled to his own opinion. But I think it's important that we can take away little lessons from people. We can take away little lessons from the guy down the road that we just met, from the person that's standing in the protest. Like, hear them out. Ask them their why. Why are you doing this? What contributions do you want to make? Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of different ways you can do that.
Yeah, definitely.
But, you know?
I completely agree with all of that.
Yeah.
I think that why we're doing this is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So, Carnell, if you had, I have a question. If you were out there with the people protesting, and someone came up to you and they're like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know what my why is. What would you tell them in order to kind of figure that out?
I would just ask them that same question, but in a different way. So why do you wake up in the morning to brush your teeth?
Mm-hmm.
Or why do you have a situation like this where you're wanting to be together with people to protest? What is the reason for that, right? So there's different, not every why is the same. Not every why comes from the same drive. And different drives have different power.
Yeah.
So the drive to brush my teeth, for instance, in that scenario would be something that I don't really have to think about that much. It doesn't keep me up at night. It doesn't, I mean, of course, you know, if I have some doo-doo stank breath, you know, that's not going to be good. But really, when someone's asking, why am I going to this protest, you really have to really figure out what is going on with how you feel. How do you feel, and what story are you willing to tell once you get involved, once you make that decision?
I think that's a really great point. I mean, to jump into like a whole narrative situation of what we're going on. So we're saying damned if I don't about effective ways to actually use social activism. I mean, if you look at the things that are going on today, we had the protests, we had people doing things right, we have peaceful protesters, but we also have people that were rioting. We have policemen. Not all policemen are bad. We have really great law enforcement out there, but of course, the one bad apple ruins the bunch, so they say. It's perspective, it's PR. Like the media takes these different things and leads them into perspectives. And at the end of the day, our whole goal through this is to try and awaken and show you guys that there's different ways that you can actually help move a narrative forward in a correct manner. Especially like, okay, just to break it down. I don't know if you've heard this, you've probably heard it 1,000 times. Of course, all lives matter. But guess what? You're like me and him, we're not going through the issues right now. The matter at hand is Black Lives Matter. And we have to work together as a community of people to erase the systematic racism, the problem at hand, and then we can face other problems.
And there is.
And of course.
There is a problem at hand. And I think there's a lot of people who have a jagged opinion of it. You know, they've been conditioned by their family, conditioned by the different people that they've grown up with or known, and this is what they've been told. This is okay. This is okay to call this Black person this name. This is okay to treat them like shit. It's okay for you to sit here and make them bow down to you. No, it's not. We're all people. We all have red blood that flows through us. We all breathe oxygen. Man. So what is the difference between the color of my skin? What does that make? God didn't say, hey, I'm going to make you after this image, and then the white people are going to be this image. No, he made us all from his image.
Yeah.
He doesn't specify as to, okay, Black people, you know what? I'm just going to change the color of your skin tone. No, you have a beating heart. You have a story. You have a voice. You have a gift. And it's time that everyone heard that.
No, definitely. I mean, we live in a crazy narrative, and I think that everyone's systematic, like different perspectives. Just don't allow that to go into. What do you think about all this, Carnell?
Well, one question I would ask for people today is, who benefits the most from us being divided, right? And if you look at this, who stands to lose when we come together, when we listen to each other, when we work together, when we fight? Who stands to lose? And if you can clearly distinguish between those two things, I think you have what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great, like, I mean, people have talked about it, but the way, again, hearing from someone else, hearing a different perspective always leads to somewhere like you can broaden your horizon. And I think that, again, you're talking about, I mean, it's in our Constitution. United we stand, divided we fall. And the people, I think systematic leaders, people with money, people that are doing these different things, basically are trying to break this up because, again, united we stand together.
I mean, and think about what you just said, Nick, to broaden your horizon, to open the doors in your own life. And it's that journey. It's being in the process of it that people forget. People forget that, you know, Carnell, you could be going through something just like I am, and I never know because I don't take the time to ask you how you're doing because of the color of your skin. That's not okay. What is okay is to stand up for what you believe in, to step outside the normative box and stand up for these people who, you know, they don't have a voice right now. And I think that is the biggest thing, is finding that voice, finding the opinion, finding where you stand in society. And also thinking about the contributions that you can make right now, because everyone can do something, whether it's donations, whether you're going through, you're doing funds, whether you're writing or whether you're protesting. What, you know, you might be a cop that's on the other side of all this and that's thinking, man, I really don't like the opinions of all these writers and stuff. And that's okay. You are entitled to that. But what is going on, like Nick said, this is Black Lives Matter. And the reason why this is an issue is because it's been pushed under the rug for so long. And what is your opinion on that, Carnell? Do you think there's something that, you know, the justice system can do better, or there's something that we as people can do better to help this movement go on?
Yes. You know, there's a tremendous amount that each one of us can do. And I believe that God has given each one of us gifts. And no matter what your religious beliefs are, what your beliefs are, we all have something within us that needs to be shared. And the first thing that I would say, this is for myself, this is for both of you, Nick, Zach, and anybody else who's watching, is to, one, surrender to change.
Ooh.
You know, change is here. Change is the only thing that stays the same.
Yes, damn right.
And some people, you know, some people don't like change. And if you're one of those people, I'm telling you, surrender to change. Because that is the way. That is the way that we move forward. That is the way that we had the civil rights movement come to pass. That is the way that we had women get rights in the 20s. That is the way, I mean, throughout history, if you look at any person, any group, any organization, the first step was to surrender to the change.
Yeah. You know, and they tell you all the time, man, that, you know, in order for you to change who you are, you first have to change your mind. You can't solve a problem with the same mind that actually created it. So you get to a point where you're sitting here and you're thinking about all this stuff and you're like, well, the black people are, you know, they're going off again. You know, what's the issue? You have to take a step back and actually do some research. Don't listen to what the damn media is telling you. Step back and do your own research. Develop your own opinion, and maybe you might actually see that, man, I have some of the best friends in the world who are colored people. Some of the best people, the best hearts. And to see them be racial profiled, to see them be patted down before I was ever even touched or anything like that, that's hard to swallow. And it's getting to a point now where it's out in the open, yes. But I think there's still a lot more that we can do. And going back to your point, Carnell, I think God has to come into play. I think in order for change, we've got to let go and we've got to get God back in this.
Well, even to, like, again, whatever religion, blah, blah, whatever this is going on, I think, again, back to the scenario at hand is that the issue is Black Lives Matter. And, of course, there's so much more going wrong on in the world, but this is the issue at hand that we need to deal with. And Zach talked about, of course, there's different ways to actually start moving forward on some of these things. Again, this is titled Damned If I Don't, Effective Ways for Social Activism. One thing that really hit me hardcore the other day was I was thinking about what I could do as a white individual for the Black community going on, because I have friends in the Black community. I wanted to be there for them. Of course, I have family members that are like immunocompromised, different things like that. So like going out and protesting, doing these things, I could come back and get my family sick. And I think a lot of people are thinking about health things that are going on, as well as trying to be there for the Black community, doing different things. But protesting is not just the only way to go and do things. Number one, I was really conflicted and figured this out through, again, one of the most important things that you can do at this moment is, and I believe, is having the hard conversations with people you don't want to have conversations with.
Right.
Number one, okay, we're passing all this legislature. You're seeing like the things going on in New York and California and Louisville, for all these things that are going on. They're great from actual active protesting and signing petitions, different things like that. But at the end of the day, what's really important is that, again, we live in a community. If I'm sitting here and I pass a law against something, against racism, at the end of the day, if he's a racist, which he's not, if he's a racist, he's still gonna be a racist. Yeah. It's not gonna change because someone passed a law. At the end of the day, we have to have the hard conversations that I would have to have with Zach, and at least try to see eye to eye or build a better awareness so that we can eventually change the narrative, change the way people think, change this mentality of racism, and build a community that build each other up. And we have to do that from a Black perspective to a white perspective. Most effective way I can do that as a white individual is have those hard conversations with people that don't seem the same way as me. Go sign petitions. Reach out to my Black friends in the Black community and see how they're doing. See if there's anything that I can help them with. Donate to charities. Go out and do a drive, like a food drive for people that are actually protesting. Find these effective ways and pathways to help in your own position. Sorry, I went off on a real. That's my TED Talk. My drop.
That's how you feel, man. Yeah. But Carnell, what are some ways that you think we can kind of rid ourselves of all this excess, all this outside noise, and kind of get back on that path, kind of get back on that contributions that we can give?
Absolutely. Once surrendering to change, after that, what's next, right? What do we do next?
Yeah.
I would say for me, and this is something that Nelson Mandela was huge on, and I don't remember the exact quote, but the main idea was education. Education is the great equalizer. You look at any era in history, now, in the past, education is the way to protect yourself, to empower yourself, and to empower other people, and to create real change. In this era that we live in, I believe this is the era where we need proper education. Yes. Because right now, it's not the fact that we don't have information. Yeah. You don't get it twisted with information. There's a difference between education and information. See, information can be mindless. You can program a software to push out fake news on your Facebook profile, and it could just continue to push that out. That's not real information. And if you use, and it takes an open heart and an open mind to educate yourself and to protect that integrity.
Sorry to jump in real quick. One thing that he's really talking about, again, subject to change, but again, one of the things that's really important, I'm a communications major in undergrad, and I was going for media management in graduate school. One of the most important things, guys, is, again, media pushes out these fake news, these different things. Always, if you see something on Facebook, go do some research, look it up, because at the end of the day, like the Starbucks thing, Starbucks is actually not against any of this Black Lives Matter movement, although they're actually helping with it. And like the media is portraying different things all over the place, and people are so quick to jump the gun because it's so easy. Yep. You guys need to really make sure you're doing some research. Again, like Zach said earlier, forming your own opinions and looking into what's going on instead of block out that noise and do the research. I'm sorry, you can go back on. I had to do that tangent because people need to.
Well, hey, education doesn't happen overnight, right? And I want to share an example of what that would be like, for instance. And this is coming from a place of privilege, but I still believe this is a perspective that can shift how we think. Yeah. So for instance, let's say I'm a black African American male. Let's say I'm driving down the street, right, and I get pulled over.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm doing everything right. Well, there's two ways that there's multiple ways that sort of situation can go down.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in the news with George Floyd, with Ahmaud Arbery, these are people who are slain in cold blood. And so, of course, when I say this is from a privileged perspective, this is what I mean. You could be doing everything right. You can be the model citizen and anything, and you can still get slain in the street. And there's sometimes, there's not much you can do about that. But that does not change the power that you have. Control what you can control. And knowing your rights, Fourth, Fifth Amendment, even your Second Amendment rights. I'm a big advocate for, and this is not a political conversation. This is not left or right. This is education. Even if you don't, even if you don't agree with owning a gun, at least knowing what your rights are. And I'm telling you, that alone is that it's not what I'm saying. I'm not selling legal services. I'm not advocating for you to just stick your head in the Constitution, cross-eyed, and blurt out some random stuff to the next officer you see down the street. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the mindset. It's the mindset that's really gonna make this change.
Well, I mean, that's so important. You talked about one of the things, the services that you can go into later, which is really, really interesting that he's talking about. But knowing these rights is super important. I mean, and again, what's so I'm not taking either side on this. What's something that's, again, we're talking about media, as again I'm not saying I'm going against anything that's happened, but if you're watching a video at all, what you see is a video. You don't see what happened before. You don't see what happened after. Again, doing research and finding these different things is really, really important. But exactly to his point, knowing your actual rights as an American citizen is so important. I don't know if y'all have seen the video of the Florida state attorney getting pulled over by the cops, and they pulled her over, and she's from the black community, and they pull her over, and she's like, "Why'd you pull me over, sir?" And she's like, "Oh, we needed to run your tags." She's like, "Why did you need to run my tags?" Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Oh, we just do this, blah blah." And she goes, "I'm the Florida state attorney. I know my rights. Why did you run my tags?" And these things, just knowing your actual rights. Why? Like actually understanding, okay, if an officer pulls you over, pleading the fifth, not saying anything unless you have an attorney. Did I do anything wrong? Oh, no. We just wanted to check. Okay, but if I didn't do anything wrong, why did you pull me over? Knowing these things, not just from being pulled over by a policeman, but in like general life situations is so important, because people can't take advantage of you. A lot of times people are looking to take advantage of you in the situations they're in.
Yep. And that's just
knowledge is
power. Hands down. Hands down.
But you've got to realize that you have opportunities, and that the world that we live in today, and there's a lot of kindness and a lot of good, but there's a lot of bad out there. There's a lot of balance. You have to have balance in the world to keep it going,
Yin and yang.
Yin and yang, And I think, going along with your topic, you really have to know your rights, know the law, because in this day and age, people will get over on you. People will take your kindness for weakness, and they will turn around and they will use these against you.
Oh, that's such a powerful statement. And before, I know I can see that Carnell wants to jump into this. Something that I've been really, really on the side with. If you guys follow Gary Vaynerchuk, fantastic guy. We talk about him on our podcast all the time. One of the interesting things he talks about is, of even before all this is happening, is empathy over hate. Okay, why would you even hate on the situations that are going on? Why would, is this even a choice to end racism? Does that make sense at all? At the same time, if someone's hurting, I'm not going to sit there and be like, Oh, your leg's hurting? My leg's fine, but I'm worried about my leg. At the end of the day, the whole situation is empathy over hate.
Man, and you've got to sow some love, guys. Like hate is powerful. Don't get me wrong. I've known people that are racist, that have hated black people, that have hated these different ethnicities, and I've seen them turn around. I've seen people that have killed people's families, and then they completely make a mindset change to where they're free. But it all starts with that awareness. It all starts with you.
I think real quick too is that really important is that, again, like Carnell said, is you have to surrender to change. Like one thing that I've come to learn that has really changed my life is being open to actually just being wrong. I'm wrong more than I'm right. And when I'm proven wrong, I learn. I don't try to sit there and get angry over the situation. I learn and I adapt to things because that allows me to grow.
And you can't be consumed in hate, man. You cannot. It will kill you. It will destroy you. It will lead you down a path of turmoil and depression. But let's reverse it. Let's turn hate upside down and let's sow love. Let's sow love to everyone. Those policemen that are hurting, that did this stuff, let's kill them with kindness and love. You know what? Because most of the time when people are spewing hate on you, it's because they hate themselves.
Right. And absolutely.
What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I believe that the way that we operate as human beings has to do with the story we tell ourselves. And if this is for me, when I am let me give you a story. So I bumped my head so hard yesterday, and I had multiple ways of reacting, but my default mode of operation that I do my best to evaluate and just take a step back whenever something doesn't go my way, like bumping my head on a very sharp, wooden cabinet. My first default mode of operation is just a step back, right? You ever notice your parents ever tell you this when if let's say you stub your toe? Well, if you wince in pain after you stub your toe, or if you wince in pain after you hit yourself, you fall off your skateboard, you like scrape your whole arm, you ever fall on asphalt, concrete, and you get up and your hands are like, they have welts on them because of how
we were skating yesterday, so we fell down. I could barely walk yesterday.
Yeah. So, but if you have multiple ways of responding to that, and if you respond to that in an adverse way, and you're like, man, ow, like this hurts, like one, that could be a sign of stress relief, and it's okay. It's okay to be angry, to be hurt, to feel those emotions, but to stew in it, to sit in it, to marinate in it. This ain't chicken, ladies and gentlemen. This is, you don't want to tenderize yourself with hate. You want to tenderize yourself with love. And when I hit my head on that counter, I was, on the floor in the fetal position, like, ow, like this really hurts. But, after 30 seconds or so, it went away. And I got up and I laughed about it. And I was like, wow, I was literally on the floor for 30 seconds like a little baby. Yeah. But that's how you have to approach everything when we're dealing with these situations right now. There's so many opportunities to pop off and let something ruin your day, and take your joy. And that's not the way we're going to make change.
No, man. And that's why we're the developers of our own opportunities. That's why we are this, because you have the power right now to change. Let's say that you're one of those people that's out there right now, you're protesting and you're angry and you're mad and you just want to kill somebody. You want to beat somebody up. I want you to take a second right now and say, Lord, where there is hate, let me sow love. Or even this too shall pass. Using these cue words right here, it can completely change your emotion. It can change your whole mindset. And when we get to a point where we start to feel hate, we start to feel that anguish, and we start to act on it, that's when it gets bad. That's when we go down this path of no return. But we start using this positive self-talk. We start using these different tools, these different keys, these different attributes.
Yeah.
You can change your mindset completely to someone that you don't even realize anymore. Because a lot of us have a war that's going on inside us, especially with this topic right now that we're talking about, social activism. There's many, many different opinions.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who have been conditioned to believe certain things. And it's up to us as fellow man, as fellow people, to change that mindset, to uplift each other.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that when we get to that point, it's limitless, dude. It's limitless. I think that's what we got to get to.
Well said.
Absolutely.
Well said. Yeah. I think something, again, what's really important, I talked about it earlier, is we have to build a brighter future. Remember, like, I was listening to a podcast yesterday with it was Kevin Hart and Joe Rogan. And one of the things that Kevin Hart was talking about is, again, he's talking about just being aware, socially aware of everything that's going on. And he said that at the end of the day, it is our job as people in the world, just human beings, to build a brighter future for the next generation, for our children, for our grandchildren, for our friends, for anyone. And if you're not doing that, if you're just taking part in living, you're not helping. You're not building a community. And that's what we are as a human race, is a community. And like, if you're looking at this, again, perspectives everywhere, there's all this hate, all this noise, all these things going on. But at the end of the day, this is going to pass. This too shall pass, like he said. You're going to look back and you'll be like, okay, this happened. Did I help? Did I not help? Whatever. But what we're trying to do is build a brighter future. We're trying to build a better tomorrow. So we have to build each other up. Again, talking about these hard conversations, doing things the right way, so we can end up as a better community instead of a community that's torn, that's fighting each other.
That's what we are. We're a house divided. We're a house divided, man. So Carnell, I know there's a lot of people out there, man, that they're really hurting over this. You know, there's people on different sides. There's people that are saying, like, no, this is wrong. There's people that are saying, like, this is not that big of a deal. How would you start out and have those hard conversations with those people? Like, if there was someone right now that was telling you, hey, I don't believe in this at all, I think this is completely wrong, how would you go about trying to change, not so much as change their opinion, but just get to them to process your perspective?
Well, that's a great question. You know, that's one of the things that person to person, when you say empathy over hate, when you approach it, this is directly how you instill that language change that you were talking about, you know, change mindset, language, how people think. And you can't change how somebody thinks. You know, we don't have Jedi Master mind tricks to change. And, you know, we're not going to solve racism that way. I mean, to be frank, that's not how racism is going to be solved. So to really be that person who is the resource for someone else is to really ask those questions and be curious, because again, it goes back to that beginning example when you have somebody who wants to figure out, why am I doing this? What is the reason? Well, everybody has their own reason, and you may not be able to convince them. You may not be able to change their mind. But at the same time, you could at least have their story heard. You can at least have their story heard. And, you know, there's been times where people have, like, bad people, like people who have murdered people who have taken people hostage in cold blood, who have been on the phone with FBI hostage negotiators. And just because the person on the phone, the dispatcher on the phone was able to empathize with the person on the other side of the line just because the enemy was heard. They decide in multiple occasions, you can go and look at the FBI's records. This is not just hearsay. This is fact. There's been multiple times where the person was like, you know, I'm going to release all the hostages now.
So, and that's a really, really great point. There's a book I read called Negotiate the Difference, and it talks exactly about the negotiation tactics and different things like that. But one thing that I want you guys to realize about these hard conversations that Zach and Carnell were just talking about is you can't change someone's mind by pushing ideas onto them, by being aggressive and trying to be like, this is right, you're wrong. That's never the way to build an actual like rapport about something. I'm gonna tell you the way to do this. The way to have these hard conversations. We're opening this door right now. The way to have these hard conversations is okay. I'm gonna ask you a question. Why do you think that way? Can you explain to me why you feel this way? Why is this bothering you? And you understand their perspective. Once you understand their perspective, you can start asking questions. You can be like, okay, but why do you think this way? And then give them some examples to something and build a conversation. Once you build a conversation, you can start actually talking about some hard things. But people in today, I talked about it. People in today don't like having the tough conversations.
No.
But to get over this, to build a brighter future for the people that come after us, for us even today, for our friends, for different things like that, we're going to have these hard conversations. You might not like it. I've had to have these hard conversations, and they're not the funnest things to do. But at the end of the day, guess what? Because I'm having this, I have a different perspective from someone that I didn't think as well, and they gained a perspective that they didn't have. And if you continue these conversations throughout time, change is inevitable.
Well said, Nicholas. And I think ultimately you've got to realize that you can't gain your knowledge from one place. You've got to be someone that does their research. You've got to be someone that is not scared of that change. And you've got to let your voice be heard. So Carnell, I know like everyone's struggled. Everyone's had something that they've had to deal with or had to do, and they've had to take these hard conversations. But what we realize is that there's times where if we don't say it to that person, who will? Maybe we were put in that situation just for that one aspect of changing this person's perspective, or just getting them a little thought into your perspective. It's something that I love about being human, and something I love about being able to relate to you, Carnell. You know, as a person, we relate on such an intimate level based upon the way we talk, you know, our body language and all these different aspects. But we're all human, and we all should act like it. We should all act civilized, and we should all be able to uplift one another. But you've got to take responsibility for your own actions. You have to take responsibility for your own actions. I'm going to say that again.
Mic drop right there. Mic drop.
Boom. Quote ended. But just maintain yourself and just be. And instead of doing all these things and talking all this crap like most of us do, because that's what we live in now, we're a media-driven thing where everybody talks shit and does nothing. Be the person that acts. Be the person that does something. Be the person that plants their feet in the fucking ground and doesn't let anyone move them. And I think if we get to a point where there's enough of us doing that, there's enough of us that want to make a change, it's inevitable. There's energy towards it. It has to happen.
You're putting energy in the universe. If you don't think you can make a change, one person can change the world with just a thought, with just an action. You can do that. And it's time. I mean, the world's changing right now. The world's changing every second. Like Carnell said, change is inevitable. Change is the only thing that's constant. Let's make this change for a better future, for the people that come after us, for us in general, for our friends, our family, the people that surround us, for all mankind.
You know, and I really love, Carnell, that you do a lot of teaching, you work with youth. And I actually came across this thing the other day, and they were talking about how life is kind of like a game of chess. everyone's a different piece. You got your pawns, you got your knights, and they were getting to where they were talking about the king, and they were asking, "Can you guess who the king is?" Can you guess who the king is?
I don't want to get the right out. I don't want to get the wrong answer.
The king is the youth, because ultimately they're going to be the people that lead the next generation. So if you want change, the change has to start with youth. And Carnell, I know you work with a bunch of youth, man. I know you work with a lot of them. What are some ways that, I know there's a lot of parents that are going to be watching this. There's a lot of different people that are different aspects that are going to be watching this. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to provide change in your child's life, to get them to see what's going on, to get them to be one of those kind and empathetic persons, how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, I would say, because I've never had kids, but I've been a tutor for 5 years. Yeah. And so I've worked with different age groups from, kindergarten all the way up to college students, even non-traditional college students who are older than me. So, and the thing that, the instructive value that you can give as a parent or as a role model or a figure for somebody who is under your guidance and leadership is to be an example. And your example is going to be what they look at in the context of whatever the conversation leads to and whatever learning opportunity happens when you're having these difficult conversations. So these difficult conversations, really, kids say the darndest things, but they also are they also have the most open minds.
Yeah.
And they teach us things. Teach us things. So it's if you have that example in place, a child knows, or anybody who's under your leadership knows what's right from just looking at you. And then if there's something that is aside from that, if there's some foolishness or something that's maybe difficult to talk about, then your example provides that conversation to be had, and you can ask those questions. And it's not about this is how it is. It's about asking those questions. It's about getting the child's brain to think, right? The imagination of a child is
something else.
An untapped universe.
Yeah.
And so if these people, these littles, these or middles or bigs or whoever, if you know these people, tap into that imagination and tap into their hearts and minds.
I mean, if we're not born racists, you're not born anything but a human being, and there's so much untapped potential in every individual. And again, this is why we even created the doors, because we wanted to build on our own potential, but also to really show people that they have the utmost potential if they are willing to put in the effort and try to do things. And as we're getting pretty close to a 45-minute time, but what's so important is all the things that we talked about in this really are almost, it's an awakening to the social activism that needs to take on place, and the things that need to be done moving forward, as not only in our communities, but in our day-to-day lives with individuals that are around us. Again, we talked about this, that racism is prevalent. It's not, you can't say that it's not. We see it all the time. I've seen it. I grew up with it. We live in one of the most, we're in Tennessee right now, but we lived in one of the most racist states. In Tennessee and Georgia is just racist in general. And again, to break it down from our different points, empathy over hate, just empathize with what's going on. Yeah.
And like you said, man, empathy over hate. And right when you're in the middle of that no peace moment where you're being overwhelmed, give yourself that chance. Even this too shall pass. Where there is hate, let me sow love. Use those keywords. Use your mind to make the changes that you want to see in the world.
Damn right. If you had to, Carnell, if you had to give one piece of advice or one overall just generalization that to leave the people that have watched us, the viewers, anyone that will watch this in the future with, what would that be?
I would say first, the most important part is the surrender. And that means so much for so many people. It means so much to me. And that's not just with Black Lives Matter. It's really with any part of your life personally, my life personally, that needs improvement, and that area that we see to make the world better. And that surrender, it's terrifying, but on the other side of that is the greatest reward on earth, is a more fulfilled life where you can give back and leave the world better off than you left it.
I love that, dude.
That was so powerful, guys. And I'm gonna say a quote that goes really well with what he just said, is that I'm gonna change it up a little bit, but it's from Jim Carrey's commencement speech in 2014 at the MEM graduation. On the other side of change, there's a world starving for new ideas. Let's say this one more time. On the other side of that change, there's a world starving for new ideas, starving for new leadership. Let's create this world together, a brighter future where we can all just be ourselves. We can all strive for greatness. We all can succeed as a community instead of, again, being pulled down, bogged down by this hate, by all of society's troubles. Let's build a brighter future. Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Damned If I Don't. We're the Doors, the developers of our own opportunities, reinforcing success. I thank you so much. I'm Nicholas Sternloff.
I'm Zachary Otts.
This is Carnell Tate.
And thank you so much. We're definitely be doing more of this, but I thank you for tuning in. I thank you for taking place in this, and let's actually make the difference. Let's be the change in the world. Let's go, guys. Let's do it. Peace.